Thus, when we really come to this 58th chapter of Isaiah, Isaiah has been charged to speak to the people about what looks good on the outside, may not necessarily have the substance that ultimately reflects the heart of God. And so the prophet has to chastise the people because they've engaged in fasting. So it looks good that they've been willing to engage in spiritual discipline, but they are fasting with the wrong motive. With the wrong motive such that is displayed in verse 3 of the text, where they ultimately say, "We have fasted and you have not taken notice." And this is the people speaking to God. They said, "Why have we fasted?" They say, "and you have not seen. Why have we afflicted our souls and you take no notice?" The fact that they would have the audacity to suggest that, "God, we are fasting, we are doing what you required of us, and it seems as though you are not taking notice." But then the prophet has to respond back to them because God is not pleased with their outward display. And he says in the rest of 3, "In fact, in the day of your fast, you find pleasure. However, you exploit all your laborers. Indeed, you fast for strife and debate and to strike with the fist of wickedness. You will not fast as you do this day to make your voice heard on high." So ultimately, you're engaged in the action, but you're engaged in the action for your own benefit. You're engaged in the action, and that action is ultimately causing strife and division amongst the people. It is not drawing you closer to God. It is not convicting you of your idolatrous practices. It is not changing the fact that you've still sinned against me. But because God made a covenant back in Genesis with Abraham, God says, in light of your sin, in light of your disobedience, in light of the fact that you've broken my heart time and time again, in light of the fact that I'm going to condemn you, I'm also going to restore you. I'm also going to revive you. I'm also going to replenish you. I'm also going to rehydrate your faith, and I'm going to even reposition you. But first, I got to tell you some hard truths. First, I got to help you understand what you've done to me, because it's incongruent in terms of what I've given, and what you haven't given back to me. And thus, the people of Israel find themselves between condemnation and restoration. And it's in between that space that the Lord gives this word that I think serves as significant and valuable promises for us. But as we know, when we read the word of God, the promises some are very conditional. That there has to be something done on our part in order for us to be beneficiaries of that which God has for us. So he says in verse 9, in order to ultimately receive the benefits of this promise, he says, "If you take away the yoke from your midst, the pointing of the finger and speaking wickedness, if you extend your soul to the hungry and satisfy the afflicted soul, then your light shall dawn in the darkness, and your darkness shall be as the noonday." So the condition to receive the blessing means that you're going to have to make a shift, that you're going to have to change. And in between the promise and the acquisition of land, in between the offering or believing that you have what it takes to start on the dissertation, then choosing the committee, and then ultimately getting that final draft to the committee, in between enrollment and graduation, in between the filling out of the application for the job and waiting for them to respond back, in between you putting in for the promotion and waiting on God to move on your behalf, and even in between your shift. Because one of the things that I began to think about this week as we heard from heaven this week, I know that there are those of us who are going to actually need the courage to shift, because some of us got convicted this week. Some of us got some clarity this week, but some of us are going to need some courage to actually make the shift. But then not only will some of us need the courage to make the shift, some of us are going to need the strength because we actually believe God enough to shift. So you're going to need strength to hold on in the midst of your shift. But you're also going to need to pray for those who are going to possibly feel some type of way about the fact that you have shifted. Let me say that one more time. Somebody, you're going to need to be praying for the people around you Because they possibly gonna feel some type of way about the fact that you shifting, which may mean I may not get back to the email the same way, may not see me on Facebook no more, got to get off Snapchat, ain't got time for the gram, don't look for me on Periscope. Why? Because I have shifted.